All right, what's up? Welcome back to another deep dive. Let's see here. Okay. All right. Welcome back. Welcome to the deep dive. For anyone who's new, if you don't know, my name is Tim. I go by Foamy Guy on GitHub and Discord. I am filling in here on Friday for the deep dive for Scott. Scott is the lead developer of Circup Python project. He is out this week and next week as well. So I am filling in on the deep dives. I will be streaming next week at the same time here as well on Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. And I also stream on Tuesdays. I will mention that later at the end if I remember, and I think it was on the title card anyway if I forget. If you don't know what the stream is about, we work on CircuitPython stuff on this stream. The main website for the project is circuitpython.org right here. This is basically a version of Python that runs on tiny computers called microcontrollers. Usually the way it works, when you use CircuitPython with these devices, you will plug them into your computer with a USB cable. They show up like a thumb drive, and when you edit a Python code file on that thumb drive, you can save it, and the microcontroller will interpret and execute that Python code for you. It will basically reset and run the Python code, and the code can interface with whatever other hardware peripherals you hook up to the microcontroller. So you can have RGB lights and buttons and buzzers and beepers, inputs, outputs, sensors, all kinds of things that you can make other fun and interesting projects and stuff happen with. So that is the very quick version. Again, circuitpython.org, you can learn more. As always, thanks to Adafruit. Adafruit is a hardware and software company based out of New York. They make CircuitPython possible by paying a team of folks to work on the project. It is an open source project. All the code is published under open source licenses. Anyone's allowed to take it and use it, fork it, change it, port your own devices to add support for them. All of that stuff you can do on your own without any kind of permission or paying any fee or anything like that for a license. So all the code is, again, published on GitHub under open source licenses. If you would like to help support the CircuitPython project, as well as a number of other open source software projects that Adafruit supports, again, by paying people to work on them, Arduino drivers and such as well. That's outside the CircuitPython world, but it is more open source software that Adafruit makes possible. If you want to help support it, one of the easiest ways to do it is by purchasing hardware from them at their website, adafruit.com. You can get microcontrollers as well as other bits and bobs, doodads, what have yous to hook up to your microcontroller to do other stuff with, like all the stuff we talked about being able to hook up before, sensors, lights, buttons, everything, anything and everything. 1 second, let me get this out of my pocket here. Okay. Let us go into the IDE, jumping in. So I am working more today on the same thing that I've worked on the last couple of streams. So for anyone who caught the Tuesday stream or last week's streams of mine, this is basically the same thing that I've been working on. I'm trying to integrate what I was calling the CircuitPython runner script with pytest, so that we could have automated tests that live inside the repo for the libraries. But those automated tests, instead of running inside of actions automatically in GitHub, the intention is for them to be run manually, like locally in a cloned copy of the repo, kind of like how pre-commit would be run. Although pre-commit also gets run in actions. But this is basically for like a reviewer, for instance. A reviewer could find a PR, could check out the branch for the PR, and could run this test suite against an actual hardware device with whatever other hardware needed hooked up. And on Tuesday, I did start moving this into Circup. So today what we're going to do is start using the Circup implemented version of the runner thing inside this test script to make sure this is all working. Ideally, we can test both workflows. We'll see how it goes when we get into it. I will need to do it slightly differently. So this repo, which is just kind of a test repo where I was doing some hardware tests. I mean, it's not really a test repo. It is a repo for the Max 44009 driver, but I was using it as a sort of test bed for my own little testing setup thing here. Is a better way to phrase it. And we need to be in the right virtual environment. So here, this is in CPY virtual environment, but this Circup is actually in Circup environment, which is a different Python virtual environment. But we need our tests to have access to this sort of development branch of Circup. So I have a few options. I could either use this virtual environment over in this repo, the driver repo, when I run the tests, or I could install the development Circup into this virtual environment, which I think is what I'm going to opt for. Move. I don't think that's necessary. But I think it's kind of like superstitious. Feels like it should help. Pip install. So I want -e because I want it to just follow whatever's in my Circup repo. Work great. Yeah, okay. Okay, so we should see run here, which tells us that it worked because run is the new command, and that would not be there if we didn't have the development branch. Now, one thing I do notice is run has no help text, so why don't we add that before anything else? It's actually weird that it doesn't. Okay, because we don't have short help inside of here. Code file on the device and get the results back. What is up? Beata, no, yeah. Beata Hagen. Over in the YouTube chat. Nice to see you, my friend. Yeah, if I think I am used to, I think I usually shorten your name to just Beata, and it threw me off reading the whole thing there, so sorry if you don't prefer the short one. It occurs to me now that I don't usually read it all. So it's like run the specified code on the device, get the results, get the, it's not even really the results, it's the, and print the serial output. That's what we want to say. Command, command like this, and then it should auto update because that -e flag We should be able to just run this again and get actual output now. So run the specified code file on the device and print the serial output. And theoretically, we should be able to do like this way as well. Doing well. Yeah, that's fine. Thanks. Yeah, for sure. Nice. I'm glad to hear you're doing well. All right. So yeah, it tells us serial port, duration. This should say I think this should specify USB. So one thing that's a little weird about this command is that there's two versions, essentially. There's two ways it can work, as with most of Circup, in fact. Circup can either go over USB, or it can go over the web workflow. Actually, I think well, no, Bluetooth I don't think ever was working. But yeah, USB and web, it can do those two. And when it uses the web workflow, there's one less argument, essentially. When it uses the USB workflow, you need to know the serial port. Like if you're on Windows, it'll be like COM7 or 2 or whatever. If you're on Linux, it'll be like /dev/tty ACM0 or whatever. It needs to know that to be able to find the device. But on the web workflow, it doesn't need to know that because it connects to a WebSocket, and the WebSocket has like a static known URL, so it can get to it without an extra piece of information, basically. What is up, Tyeth, my friend? Nice to see you today. Let's see. It took me a while to find the -- path for Circup, so we can work with local projects and drives with different volume names. Yeah, -- path is a good one, which does let you target different devices. Like if you have a custom name on your volume, if you don't use CircuitPy, which I do for a couple of my projects, if I have a device that's like purpose built or dedicated is a good word for it, dedicated to a project, then I will rename it from CircuitPy to whatever the project is, like MacroPad or whatever. That way it doesn't show up in my big list of CircuitPys if I have multiple devices connected. And path is also cool because you can target a local folder. So if you want to like prep a zip or something, like how the Learn system has a download project bundle that gives you a zip that contains everything you need for a project. If you want to like prep a similar thing to that locally, you can use Circup, target a local directory instead of your CircuitPy drive, and it will install all the libraries you need for a set CodePy file in there. Okay, so let me add USB to here because I think it does add just a touch of clarity to that argument. Serial port specify. Wait, what? Serial port file. Oh. I think I must have just copy pasted this. This should not be a file. It should be a string. And this is just all wrong anyway. USB serial port to read output from, e.g., COM2 /dev/tty ACM0. What is it on? What is the Mac one? Let me get the Mac one real fast. Oh, maybe not gonna show us. I don't know what the Mac one is. If we have any Mac users in the chat, let me know. What's the like dev tty ACM? Like, what's the serial port naming convention. If I recall correctly, it's like similar to Linux, but I think they have a different, yeah, something other than TTY. So we could search for it, actually. Mac serial ports. No, Mac serial port. Serial port name? There is no direct. That's not true. This thing. I think it's this thing. How is this not a direct equivalent? Because they're dynamically assigned. Do you have to look up the number yourself? I'm going to put Linux first because I'm making it and I use Linux. Mac. Oh, right. That using the, oh, okay, you can do that on Mac as well. That serial trick that Todd gave us last week, actually, was that serial by ID was the one we used last week, but I think there's another one in there too, maybe. Okay, USB serial port to read output from, e.g. dev tty cm0 com2. Yeah, okay. Now we have more reasonable output here. Duration, how long to serial? Yes. Okay. Text. Yeah, and this is correct now. All right, that's good. Okay, everything is good there now, I think. Now one bit that's weird is, well, we have a few options. So run code file here, but this is just the web one. We don't want to use this. We don't want to use a backend directly because the backend has to know, like, we would have to choose which backend to use. So we would have to choose either the USB backend or the web backend, which I don't want the test to do. I want Circup to do because it does it automatically. Not a Mac guy, so pinch of salt. I gotcha. Yeah, I can check if the by ID thing, I'll check on that later. And if that is a thing on Macs, truthfully, what I'll do is I'll add it for both. I'll add it and mention Linux, and then I'll look up if it works for Macs too, and if it does, then I'll blurb it to the same thing there. But I think we can call, like, what is the thing? I did this somewhere. Where was this? This is in the Fruit Jam OS. Is that right? You can, so like, Circup is a command line interface. It's most typically meant to be used from the command line. It is a Python click project. Click is a Python library for making command line interfaces. But it's possible, so like you could launch it with like os.system, right? We could run a shell string command from Python and that would work, but that's not, it doesn't feel great to me to run shell commands as strings. But you can dynamically run Circup commands. Like this. And then you call it with main as, so you just give it arguments, like so you give it a list of arguments. So you give it your command line arguments here, and then standalone mode false. Okay, yeah, that's sweet. Okay, so that's what we want to do in the test here. Back to here. Test hardware. This is not going to do this. Instead, it's going to import this from Circup commands, import main as Circup CLI, and then this is gonna get all wonky. For the first one, I'm gonna, maybe we'll do it for more than one, we'll see. Okay, so one question is we need the return though. Is it gonna, I don't know if it's gonna return. We'll find out though. Real output equals, so yeah, this, so like this would launch shell commands, command line stuff, terminal stuff as a string. We could just run our script, but that's not, I don't like that, because doing shell stuff with strings and substituting things in from the user just sounds like a recipe for a bad time. Whereas importing this specific thing and then calling it with its arguments is a little... So we would do run. Well, okay, we do actually have the problem that it does need to choose... It does need to choose... It does need to choose correctly web workflow versus disk workflow. Let's get one of them working. Let's get one of them working and then go back and figure out the way to make it dynamic. So we want to do Circup run. We want to use web workflow first. So we're actually going to do Circup. We need to put a few, I think the order, I think these are supposed to come first. So we're going to go host. Would be host is this. Actually, don't need string thing. The host is that. I'm gonna new line these. Host password. And also port. Although I don't even accept the port. Okay, so for Circup, the port is actually part of the... I'm pretty sure port's gonna be part of the host. And I don't think we need to care about it. I'm pretty sure Circup will do it correctly as long as it's part of the host. So like your host would say, by default it uses port 80, which you don't have to specify anyway. So this is really only if you change your port in your settings toggle. If you change it off of port 80, then you could say like IP, like circuitpython.local and then colon, and then whatever port you would put there, and it will figure it out for you. Okay, so host and password, then run, and then the name of the file that we want to run, which is the hard-coded right now. We do that, and then there's duration, which actually comes after run. 30. Okay, I think that's structured correctly. Oh, I think I may have been too fast because... Yeah, I think we connected to it while it was in bootloader or whatever. Like it was not in CircuitPython. All right, 233. Export www host. So here you would put your port if you changed it to something else, but I did not. It's on port 80 still, so we're just going to do that. Don't tell anyone. Throw away password anyway. We're gonna change this whenever I'm done with this work. That's all we need. Oh, so actually this is gonna be all broken because of these don't import anymore. So let me just turn these off for now. I basically just want to make sure this one works before I do the rest. So test hardware. Build, I think, actually, so it ran the test. It ran the test, and actually the tests, the Circup Python tests on the hardware succeeded, but the pytest here failed because I'm guessing the reason why is that this stuff all just printed to the window, like printed into this terminal, but did not actually get returned. Meaning circup.main does not return what it outputs. Python run click command programmatically and get output. I don't want to do a shell command though. The whole point, I mean, like, we have to, I guess. But definitely a big part of my intention is to skip the what? I'm not sure if that's what we were gonna want to do. That might be what we were wanting to do. Well, does run return? I don't think run returns either. Run doesn't return anything either. Nor does run code. Oh, actually, this one does. Okay, so run code does return. Could we return this? I don't know, this does feel a little wonky though, truthfully. And test add as a function. I don't think this is gonna work because main doesn't return either. For this to work, I think, well, oh, actually, your main would have had to return also. Result equals context invoke. I don't know if it's gonna want this list either. No. I think we would have, it looks like from this we would have to break these down into different ones of these. I guess we could do. But I kind of do want to use the list since I already have it. We get a runner. Do we need? Do we need one runner for every test, or could we use the same runner for all of them, I wonder? Then we go runner.invoke. Although we need also to seemingly import main. Well, we have main actually. I'm gonna call this Circup main. And that returns the result. Serial output I want actually, right? Argument of result? Not a string. Result.output.strip. Probably don't want to. Do I want to strip it? I don't think I want to strip it. What was it? Output would be. So that's result, and then that's result output. Output. Okay, it says it passed. I don't think we actually need this returning stuff here. I also do kind of wish it was printing. Suppose we could print this. It's kind of consuming the... consuming the output. Okay, ideally I want it to print and return. Print output. They say print it afterwards. Okay. Well, we can do that, I guess. And then, like that thing said, it does only happen if the test fails by default. Which is actually one difference between the old way we were doing it, because this was using... I assume it's because it was using circup.click, so that was saying -s, I think. It would be nice if it didn't have to wait till the end to print, because then, like, if it's a long test, it would be printing stuff as it's running. Whereas now it just runs the whole thing and then blasts the entire output at the end. But that's not so bad either. Okay, that's working. So let's clean this up and this, and then let's fix the rest of these. Actually, before we fix the rest of these, let's do a few more things that are gonna make our life easier later. Okay, args. Circup, args. Circup, args. So I think what I want to do is try to make this dynamic based on environment variables. So I think I can do that as a default, right? Yeah. So we're gonna do web workflow host, web workflow password, and then USB serial port. And you need to have either the serial port or those two. So if that's not none, well, let's say if that is none, if serial port is none, then you have to have a host and a password. So if host is none and password is none, all three of them are none, I guess. Actually, this should be or. Yeah, so if that one's none, then you need both of these. So if either of them is none, then we're gonna raise. Is it a value error? Runtime error? I don't really know. Must set either USB serial port or www host and www password environment variables. Else workflow else web workflow. Yeah, both of these are not none, so workflow is web successfully. And then if serial port is not none, then we will use it. So workflow will be USB. And then Circup args insert 0 it's multiple things. Can you extend at an index? No, it's not. You can just add lists, right? Okay. So Circup args equals this list of arguments plus the original list. So we want to, because I want to prepend this. It needs to come before run, basically. It's kind of an awkward way of doing it, I guess, but in fact, why don't we just do it top? Why don't we just do it top down? Why don't we go Circup args is a list here. If workflow web here, this is more how my brain works anyway. So if it's web, then we append. Well, in this case, we can actually extend. Because we do have two things to add. We can use these now because we got them out of the environment. We know they're not none. And then this one does actually come at the end after this stuff because the serial port one is an argument. Actually, it needs to come in here is really where it needs to be. The serial port one is an argument of the subcommand run, not an argument of the Circup main command like these are. So what we will do is actually this is going to have to come after. Extend. If it's USB, we're going to do this, but it's not host, it is serial port, I believe. Yeah, serial port. Okay. Okay. Now we have this nice chain here. We could further abstract it though, because we would have to basically duplicate this into every test. So let's do encode on device. We could just return this. And then here we go serial output equals run code on device. Okay, there we go. Then it prints, then it asserts, and that's basically it. Actually, we should do this. Target file. Target file. Okay, so we tell it what we want to run, we get the results back. We have that whole thing abstracted here into a function and using Circup internally. And so now, based on these being set, it should just correctly use serial or web workflow. Let's try it. We should be set for web workflow still. And I have another device that I can test serial with. Okay, that one passed. I'm actually going to actually have an extra cord. I was gonna say I'm gonna unplug this one, but we could live life dangerously. Dangerously? You can have multiples plugged in. One downside is they are, in this case, two of the exact same device. One of them has header pins, in my defense, but Linux doesn't know about that. Yeah, we can. It'll be TCY ACM1 in this case. I'm gonna make a new window because I think here it should. I'm pretty sure it should lose my. Shouldn't have these anymore. Yeah. So instead, we can go export USB serial port equals ACM1, and then pytest test hardware. Actually, it won't work because, well, this is a little bit awkward. It's showing me the file manager is showing me 2 circuit pies, but the actual system does not. That's not a thing that can happen. There's actually Circuit Pi and Circuit Pi 1, and in this case, Circuit Pi 1 is the device I want to use, and it is not the one that Circup is going to pick by default. If we wanted to support something like this, we would have to do this, basically. USB drive path. This one is not required though. What we'll do is, if it is, does need to be back here though. So we go L. We could just do else because we actually only have two things, but I'm gonna do an elif just to be descriptive here. So elif circup args extend path USB drive path. Oh, if it's not none though, if it's USB, elif USB and drive path is not none, then we will add path before run. Okay. So now we can test it by also doing export drive path. And this is all because I have two devices. If I would just unplug the first device and then plug the second one, redo it once, so it'd be Circup or Circuit Pi with no one, then it would work fine. But this is good anyway to test it out. So slash media Circuit Pi 1. And then pytest. Oh. Didn't work. Running tests there, serial output. But it didn't actually serial output, seemingly. Okay, let's try the circup run command by itself. So circup run, this would be path. Circuit Pi 1. You don't need a host. Actually, path comes before run. Path run serial port. Oh, one problem is we are ganking this. Or not gank, because this is the original. Well, anyway, we shouldn't be connected to this because possibly we could be ganking the serial port, although I don't think we were. Read-only file system. Really? Fair enough. I don't know why these would both be that way. I can't do that because it's read-only. Okay. New plan. Oops. So we should be no longer read-only. This is not the terminal I expected. Okay, there we go. So that worked. It failed because the device is not connected. So the actual hardware test for the driver failed, but the testing, like the running the test, succeeded, and getting the results back succeeded. Well, we didn't run the test actually. Well, we did. We ran it through Circup, but in this case, we're ready to go back to here, wherever we were before. Where were we before? Here. Try this one, and it should do the USB one now. Okay, I do want to make sure it's actually doing the right thing, so I'm going to do -S so we can see the printout. And we are going to wrap it up here in a few minutes, so if anyone has last minute questions, comments, things they want to share, anything else that you think I might be interested in, or that you just want to say for the rest of the people watching or for fun, now is the time to do it. And indeed, no, it failed actually because it's doing web workflow. Oh, right, because we need to be in this browser or this terminal, right? We made a new terminal with the new environment variables. See, it's a good thing we did -S. So this did not actually print that. Okay, there we go. This is actually what we expect. Yeah, it shouldn't have passed anyway because the thing is not plugged in. So yeah, obviously it would not pass. But I can just move it over. I don't have the camera hooked up, so I can't show you all. I need to get a new top-down camera, actually. Or depending on how you look at it, I either need to get a new top-down camera or a new face camera. Because my top-down camera that I usually show you what's on my desk with died on me before my stream on Tuesday. And no, that's not true. My face camera, this one that sees me here, this one died on me before my stream on Tuesday, and I stole the other one. The top-down camera is now here showing me, and I now have an empty mount with no top-down camera. So I cannot show you what's on my desk very well. Although right now there's not much to see anyway. It's these feathers with this sensor plugged in. All right, there we go. Now we are running on USB. We know it's USB because it says right here, and we know that it's serial ACM1 because it says right here. And I changed the sensor over, so we managed to pass everything. So now, based on which ones of these environment variables you have, it will correctly run either web workflow or USB workflow, the test, get the result back, and assert against the output. And so now we should theoretically be able to like quickly run through these and just change them over to this way. And in fact, all this stuff, well, the duration would be the one thing maybe that could change. I think all of these are hard-coded at 30 right now, but we should actually accept this in case we want to do a different one for some tests later. Let's do that. But then all the rest of this we don't need. Everything else is now all a part of run code on device. It's kind of nice that we shed all of this boilerplate inside of each of these, honestly. Okay. Actually, it's not going to be able... Let me stop all these. Let me span this. It's not going to be able to succeed on... Well, we could run them, I guess. Well, let me just switch it. It's not going to be able to succeed because it doesn't have the neopixels. Oops. The last test does neopixels. So we need to go back to web workflow, actually, because the web workflow one is the one that the neopixels are connected to. The USB workflow, they were not connected to. Just got mega blurry. What is up with that? There we go. All right. We will... Oh, that's interesting. Oh, right. I had it. Well, I had it print them. Why is it printing, though? Did I do -s? I did do -s. Okay. I was like, I thought I had to have the flag for it to do that, but I just did up arrow, and so we got the flag from the last time. I don't know, maybe we won't wait for the multipass? They should be fairly quick. Okay, so that's the downside, though, is if it fails... Well, I don't know about this -s thing, actually, because we only got output from the first... I didn't put the prints in the rest of them. It's going to print the output at the end, actually, for the failed one. That's 6. Okay, yeah, now we're on to the last one. It's doing the neopixels now, which you could probably tell I'm getting brighter here. Nice. Okay, so the only one that failed was CDR, and... we would have to get more verbose output to tell which one failed. One downside of asserting against all test pass is then when it fails, we don't get to see why it failed, right? Which is kind of a bummer in a way, truthfully. It might be better to change these to assert against the actual tests that are in this file. Change this to assert against the actual ones here. So it would have to end up being like test 1 pass, test 2 pass, or whatever they say. I forget exactly how they print it, but instead of asserting against only the last one, that way when one of them fails, it will print right here which one failed, instead of just being like, it didn't print all tests pass, so at least one failed. Okay, I think that is going to do it for today, though. We made it pretty darn far. We have both USB and web working as far as the integration of the pytest and the Circup thing. I do need to clean up the doc strings like I mentioned before, and I do still need to PR Circup, so I will probably do that next week. There's the Circup run command. I need to PR that to the Circup repo still. So I'll probably do that next week, and then this stuff will be ready to go, and I'll start adding the pytest script to some of the existing repos that already have hardware tests so that we can start actually trying this stuff out. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful Friday evening and rest of your weekend. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I will be back next week filling in for Scott. I think next week is the last week, so as far as I'm aware, Scott is planning to be back the following week, whatever the date is for that, the 26th. As far as I'm aware, although I will say I haven't discussed it with him specifically, just when he asked me, when he told me that he was going out, I think he said 3 weeks, and I think this is the second one. So I will be back next week on the 19th at the same time as I was today, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, here for the deep dive on Friday. I also do stream on Tuesdays here on the Adafruit channel, so on the 16th I will be back in the morning. I do my deep dives on Tuesday mornings, 10 a.m. Central Time or 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. So, with that being said, thanks to Adafruit, thanks to everyone watching, and I will